he obviously had reference to what wine sometimes symbolized in the scriptures, namely, joy. Being together in the kingdom was what they looked forward to with highest anticipation. Row 8. 23. 2 Co 5. 2 King David wrote, in song, of Jehovah's provision of wine that makes the heart of mortal man rejoice, and his son Solomon said, wine itself makes life rejoice. PS 104. 15. EC 10. 19. The emblems. Mark relates concerning the bread used by Jesus when instituting the Lord's evening meal. As they continued eating, he took a loaf, said a blessing, broke it and gave it to them, and said, take it, this means my body. Mr. 14. 22 The loaf of bread was the kind on hand for the Passover meal that Jesus and his disciples had already concluded. It was unleavened bread, as no leaven was permitted in Jewish homes during the Passover and the associated festival of unfermented cakes. Acts 13. 6-10 Leaven is used scripturally to denote sinfulness. The unleavened quality of the bread is appropriate, because it represents Jesus' sinless fleshly body. Heb 7. 26. 9. 14. 1 Pe 2. 22, 24 The unleavened loaf was flat and brittle. So it was broken, as was customary at meals in those days. Luke 24. 30. Act 27. 35 Earlier, when Jesus miraculously multiplied bread for thousands of persons, he broke it in order to distribute it to them. Mount 14. 19. 15. 36 Consequently, the breaking of the memorial bread apparently had no spiritual significance. After Jesus had passed the bread, he took a cup and offered thanks and gave it to them, and they all drank out of it. And he said to them, this means my blood of the covenant, which is to be poured out in behalf of many. Mr. 14. 23, 24 He used fermented wine, not unfermented grape juice. Biblical references to wine are to literal wine, not to the unfermented juice of the grape. See wine and strong drink. Fermented wine, not grape juice, would burst old wineskins, as Jesus said. Jesus' enemies accused him of being given to drinking wine, a charge that would mean nothing if the wine were mere grape juice. Mount 9. 17. 11. 19 Real wine was on hand for the Passover celebration that had been concluded, and it could appropriately be used by Christ in instituting the memorial of his death. Doubtless the wine was red, for only red wine would be a fitting symbol of blood. 1 Pe 1. 19. A communion meal. In ancient Israel a man could provide a communion meal. He would bring an animal to the sanctuary, where it was slaughtered. A portion of the animal offered went on the altar for a restful odor to Otextoi acute miritra longo, Lord's evening meal 270 Christ's blood. They properly esteem the value of the blood of the covenant by which they are sanctified. Heb 10. 29 The scriptures call them ministers of a new covenant, serving its ends. 2 Co 3. 5, 6 And they fittingly partake of the emblematic loaf because they can say, by the said will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all time. Heb 10. 10 They share in Christ's sufferings and in a death like his, a death of integrity. They hope to share in the likeness of his resurrection, a resurrection to immortal life in a spiritual body. Row 6. 3-5. Of each participant in the meal, the Apostle Paul writes, whoever eats the loaf or drinks the cup of the Lord unworthily will be guilty respecting the body and the blood of the Lord. First let a man approve himself after scrutiny, and thus let him eat of the loaf and drink of the cup. For he that eats and drinks judgment against himself if he does not discern the body. 1 Co 11. 27-29 Unclean, unscriptural, or hypocritical practices would disqualify one from eating. If he should eat in that condition, he would be eating and drinking judgment against himself. He would be failing to appreciate Christ's sacrifice, its purpose, and its meaning. He would be showing disrespect and contempt for it. Compare Heb 10. 28-31. Such a person would be in danger of being cut off from God's people, as was the one in Israel who partook of a communion meal in an unclean state. 7. 20. In fact, Paul compares the Lord's evening meal to an Israelite communion meal when he speaks first of the partakers sharing together in Christ and then says, "Look at that which is Israel in a fleshly way. Are not those who eat the sacrifices sharers with the altar?" You cannot be drinking the cup of Jehovah and the cup of demons. You cannot be partaking of the table of Jehovah and the table of demons. 1 Co 10. 18-21. Partakers and other attendees at the meal. Jesus had gathered his 12 apostles, saying to them, "I have greatly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer." Luke 22:15. But John's eyewitness account indicates that Jesus dismissed the traitorous Judas before instituting the memorial meal. During the Passover, Jesus, knowing that Judas was his betrayer, dipped a morsel of the Passover meal and handed it to Judas, instructing him to leave. Joe 13:21-30. Mark's account also intimates this